You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
U.S. Cellular has noticed the way we use our phones has gotten ironic. We try to put our phones down for dinner, but the menu's on a QR code. That's ironic. We hit like on social posts that we don't actually like, which is ironic. Which is why U.S. Cellular created Us Mode, to help us reconnect with each other and use our phones less ironically. A phone company wanting people to use their phones less is ironic. Let's find us again with Us Mode from U.S. Cellular. Visit uscellular.com/builtforus to get started.
Okay, so true story, I was scared to try tampons because I didn't know if they'd be able to protect like pads. Took me a few tries, but once inserted properly, tampons shouldn't hurt. If you feel it, it's not in far enough. Believe me, it changed my life. Like pads, tampons offer up to 100% leak-free protection, whether you're on the go or chilling at home. Now, I do and wear whatever I want on my period, thanks to the freedom and flexibility I get with adding Tampax to my routine. Learn more at Tampax.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. Well, an absolutely glorious Green Bay Packers game. Yes, it's just a preseason game, but I don't care. First of all, thank you to everybody that jumped on stream, that hung out with me and all the kiddos. We had a good time. I know they had a good time, so I appreciate all of you. Look, the preseason is for evaluation. There's a lot of guys fighting for spots. Some of them are fighting to get on the 53. Some of them are fighting for a practice squad spot. I'll tell you what, though, man, it's going to be real tough. I don't think if I would have done a 53 on Friday that I would have had nearly as much of a hard time as I'm going to have starting tomorrow trying to whittle down this 53. You got guys, I mean, Zane Anderson, who I've never understood, is out there making plays. Mosby making plays. Welch making plays. Guys that you just don't really think about for any reason. Everybody out there just absolutely making plays. So I'm very happy. I think the absolute highlight of this preseason game was the defense in general. Even if you look at the play in which we gave up the touchdown, the one lone touchdown, I believe that they had, there was a breakdown in communication somewhere on the coverage. I know the announcers at first said they thought it was King. Maybe it was King. I don't know. Busted coverage. But this still on that play, the amount of effort, the amount of hustle, the amount of violence that we saw in this game really incredible to me. I could not be happier with the effort of this team. The offensive line, the effort. I have not seen run blocking that good this entire year. Just top to bottom effort, from play calling to hustle. We had guys in the backfield on defense about every single play. And then when that initial guy would get in, and maybe he wouldn't always be able to make the tackle, sure enough, if you get in the backfield, just get a hand on him and slow him down for a second, you've got 2, 3, 4 Green Bay Packers. I kept trying to call out all the people that were in on the tackles. I couldn't do it. I couldn't, read the number on the jersey and then find out who that was fast enough to be able to determine who all these people were that were getting in there. So, I mean, these are the backups. This is not our starting defense, but the point is something seems to have clicked. It seems like the defense is really understanding the violence of the defense in particular in this game, and even the offense. Michael Pratt probably had one of the bigger hits of the day. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, but I just absolutely amazing from, again, top to bottom of this team, and I'm very excited. I mean, you look at the DBs. I'm trying to be organized here, but it's just, I want to shout out like Anthony Johnson Jr. I just, I was semi-hopeful last year because a lot of people were like, you don't understand, this guy's really talented. He should have gone earlier. He's actually going to be a plug-and-play starter. They were really excited when we drafted Anthony Johnson Jr. I'm like, all right, cool. I guess we'll see. Last year, he didn't do anything. There was nothing there, and in fact, it was Carrington Valentine that actually was the 7th-round DB that emerged for us. This year rolls around, we draft Javon Bullard, we draft Evan Williams, we draft Kitana Oladapo, and I'm just thinking, Anthony Johnson's done. It's over. He had a heck of a day. That guy was smoking everybody. And again, it was the violence. It was just the absolute violence that he played with. I mean, I'm pretty sure he knocked a guy out of the game, but that was just one of the plays. Oh, I'm still a little jacked up. Still a little bit excited. It wasn't perfect. It was nearly a perfect game until Anders missed a 32-yard field goal, which is 1 yard less than an extra point. I can still say he's 100% on extra points because technically that's true. But, yeah, that was, one of the very, very few negatives, I think, to take out of this. I think this is exactly the kind of energy that you want going into the regular season. This is exactly the focus that you want to see from this team, the intensity you want to see from the team, the takeaways from the defense, all the things that are emphasized. Again, it's not just random good things. It's, man, we hope our defense is faster. They played faster. I hope our defense swarms. They swarmed. I hope they play more downhill. They played downhill. Everybody attacks downhill. I hope they play violent. They were violent. I hope they improve in takeaways. They had, 4 takeaways in this game? Everything that we've been preaching, that they've been preaching, that we want to see more of, we saw more of. And that is beyond encouraging for me personally. We don't have any grades necessarily. I'm sure some of the grades will end up being negative that I don't agree with because I was happy with them. But let me just read their early recap. We'll go over some of the snap counts and whatnot, see what we can glean from that. Here's what they had to say, just to kind of kick us off here. Starters were few and far between as the Green Bay Packers and Baltimore Ravens battled to close out the 2024 NFL preseason, but points were aplenty for the home team. The Packers won the contest 30-7 after forcing multiple turnovers on Ravens quarterback Devin Leary and running rampant with a 3-headed rushing attack. PFF's dedicated team of graders was hard at work analyzing every player on every play in real time. The grades and data, blah, blah, blah. In the meantime, we've gathered some high-level data and snap counts for the game to give you an early look. Player of the game. Raven fans know Christian Welch well. He was on the team from 2020 through 2022 camp before being cut ahead of the 2023 season. Now with the Packers, Welch made 2 run stops, allowed just 1 catch in coverage, hauled in an interception, and dropped another in his team's blowout win. Again, Christian Welch. If this was Friday, I would have just been like, Welch, I don't know, cut him. I don't care. Whatever. Maybe practice squad. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. After today, not 53, but he's got to be a practice squad lock, doesn't he? What an incredible game. And, I mean, being a former Raven can't hurt. I mean, that's the kind of player you're looking for. Not to say that makes you good, but it's a solid foundation that you were built on for 3 years to be with the Baltimore Ravens football team. Some of the other data they collected, obviously we know the points. Total offensive plays, Packers won 65-50. EPA per play, the Packers are at about 0. It was negative .009. Average EPA play for the Ravens, negative .507. Now, how could it be negative? Well, it's probably because our offense really didn't produce quite as well. The defense was dominant. Total net yards, 326 to 198. Average yards per play, we had 5, they had 4. First downs, we had 20, they had 10. Rushing first downs, we had 10, they had 5. Passing, we had 9, they had 4. Penalty first downs, 1 each. Third down efficiency, we were 43%, they were 20%. And keep in mind, when I talk about the Ravens, I'm talking about our defense. Third down efficiency, they were 20%. That means 80% of the time we won on third down. Fourth down efficiency, we were 13%, they were 17%. They actually had 2 more possessions than we did, 12-10. Average plays per drive, we had 7.5, they had just 4.4. Think about that. 4.4 plays per drive. On average, it was basically a 4 and out. That's crazy. Average yards per drive, we had 29.6. They had 15.2. 15 yards. 4 plays, 15 yards was their average drive. Average points per drive, they had 0.5. We had 2.2. We had 5 red zone possessions. They had 0. 0 red zone possessions. This entire defense basically gave up 1 big play down the field, and that was it. Red zone touchdowns, we had 2, they had 0. Red zone field goals, we had 1, they had 0. Offensive snaps, I'm not going to go through everybody, but at the top, Lacita Smith getting a ton of work, 65 snaps, outsnapped everybody by a ton, which is interesting. Jacob Monk was next highest with 52. Then Royce with 49, Travis Glover with 44, Joel Wilson, the tight end, 36. For the wide receivers, it was actually Grant DeBose had 35 snaps. On the low end, Messiah Swinson, so this is kind of where you look at, you got 2 people that are on the low end. Those are guys that we know are pretty well locked up, so we don't need to see much, and guys that probably we don't really care to put on the field all that much, meaning bottom of the totem pole, first to get cut. Messiah Swinson, Nate McCrary, Henry Pearson, Julian Hicks, Donovan Jennings, Dimitri Stanley, Jalen Wayne. Right? I think that's kind of what you're seeing with that group. Then you got Bo Melton. Bo Melton, I think, is closer in the lock category than the close to getting cut category. On the defensive side, 52 snaps for Jermon Green, then Kalen King, Tyron Hopper, James Esther, which is interesting, although that was quite a bit lower. Really, Jermon Green had 52, Kalen King had 51, then it drops to 38 for Hopper, then 30 for Esther. So it really drops down. At the bottom, you've got 9 for Brevin Allen, 10 for Zach Morton, actually 14 for Corey Ballantyne. I didn't know he was on the field. I honestly didn't even know he was playing. I had talked about it. I was like, I think he's hurt. I don't know. I don't know where he is. Then Raylan Goforth and Keontae Shad, 15. Not great to be at the same snap count as the guy that we just picked up for 5 seconds. Then after that, you got Brenton Cox, who again is more of a lock than anything else. So do what you will. Those are all for free over at PFF. If you're putting together a 53, you want to look at that. You don't need a subscription, I don't think, for this article. So feel free to access that at your leisure. Some of the other stats that they got here. Time of possession, Packers win 34 minutes to 26 minutes. Total turnovers, 4-1. That's a heck of a ratio there. There were 3 fumbles by the Ravens. 2 of those recovered by the Packers, and then 2 interceptions on top of that. Passing was rough. The quarterbacks in general kind of struggled. Pratt looked real good at first and then seemed a little shaken, obviously culminating into a pretty nasty pick. But Packers quarterbacks just 53.8% completion rate, 57.1 for the Ravens. Not good for the Ravens, but just worse for the Packers. Packers did have more passing yards, more yards per attempt, more yards per completion, more touchdowns. So overall, still in their favor. 39 carries compared to 29. We had 193 yards, which is 4.9 average. They had 98 yards, 3.4 average. Again, the run defense has really just been significantly better. Again, these are our backups against other backups. It doesn't necessarily mean much, but I am happy to see that is an area that this defense, just in terms of the way it operates, seems to do a pretty good job against the run. We'll have to see how that looks in the regular season. What else do we got here? Passes defended, so pass breakups. Packers had 4, Ravens had 1. Only 1 sack in the game, which is really surprising because, man, they were in the quarterback's face all day long. Sack yards, it says 28. I don't know is that right? What the heck happened on that sack? Don't even remember. Interestingly enough, this is funny. Solo tackles, they had 50, we had 37. Now, I've said before, usually when you do more tackling, it means you're on defense more. It's usually not a good stat. However, despite the fact that they had nearly double the amount of tackles for a loss, they had 1, we had 5. It should be a tackle for a loss rate. We would have dominated that. Punting average, theirs was about 62 yards. Ours was 45.3. That doesn't mean much because, it just kind of depends if you're trying to kick as hard as you can or trying to pin it inside somewhere, whatever. Punting stats are always tough to just look at in general. You have to have the context. You have to be watching the game and grade each individual punt if you want to do that. Raw stats don't really mean anything. And then some of the box score stats, might as well rip through that here. Mike, we'll start with Sean Clifford was 6 of 14 for 53 yards, 3.8 yards per attempt, and a touchdown. The touchdown was beautiful. A nice 50-50 ball back shoulder to Bo Melton, who came down with it. 15 yards was his longest pass, had a 77.4 passer rating. Michael Pratt was 8 of 12 for 80 yards, which is a lot better, 6.7 yards per an attempt and a touchdown, but he did throw that pick, which was pretty rough. On the rushing side of things, passing wasn't working too well, but the rushing really was working quite well. The number one guy as far as carries was Ellis Merriweather, 16 carries, 74 yards, 4.6 yards per attempt. His longest was a 13-yard scamper. Emmanuel Wilson and Nate McCrary both had 11. I thought they both did a good job. McCrary really did a solid job as far as power. Even Wilson, some of these guys not really known for power, kind of stepping up, but Emmanuel Wilson, 11 carries, 52 yards, 4.7 yards per attempt, which is fantastic, 0.1 more than Merriweather. 12 yards was his longest. And then Nate McCrary maybe had the best day of all of them. 11 carries, 64 yards, 5.8 yards per attempt. 18 yards was his longest. Real good day, and again, a lot of that goes to the offensive line. Wide receivers. We'll just go in no particular order. I don't know how they sort them, but I'm just going to go. I think they go by fantasy points, which is stupid, but whatever. Malik Heath was the most targeted, had the most receptions, the most yards, and tied for the most touchdowns. So great day for Malik Heath. 5 targets, 4 receptions, 39 yards, 7.8 yards per attempt, 9.8 yards per reception, and a touchdown. That's followed by Emmanuel Wilson. 2 targets, 2 receptions, 26 yards. Bo Melton, just 2 targets, 1 reception, 18 yards, but comes down with a tutty. Ellis Merriweather, 1 target, 0 receptions. Samori Toure, 4 targets, 2 receptions, 28 yards. That's all Clifford. Clifford really likes Toure. I mentioned that on the stream. When he gets in there, that's his guy. Joel Wilson, 3 targets, 2 receptions, 11 yards. Dimitri Stanley, 3 targets, 2 receptions, 7 yards. Henry Pearson, who had a decent enough day, 1 target, 1 reception, 4 yards. And then Grant DeBose, Ben Sims, and Messiah Swinson each were targeted. Neither one of them came down with an actual catch. Defensive statistics. I don't want to go through everybody, but let's see. The tackles. Leading tackler of the day was Christian Welch. Again, real solid day for him. After that, Kalen King had 5. It was 6 for Welch, if I didn't say. Kalen King had 5. Tyron Hopper, who looks real good, had 5. Chris Russell had 5, whoever that is. I don't even freaking Chris Russell. Solo tackles, Christian Welch led the team with 5. And then Tyron Hopper and Chris Russell with 4. Sacks, the 1 sack goes to Aaron Mosby. Oh, I see. They're calling that was the obvious sack. Okay. Tackle for a loss, 1 for Mosby, 1 for Tyron Hopper, 1 for Chris Russell, 1 for Colby Wooden, and 1 for Deslin Alexander. Deslin didn't come in a little bit till later, at least I don't think. I didn't notice him. But man, when he came in, he made an impact. He was every single play. You're hearing Deslin Alexander's name. Forced fumbles by Aaron Mosby and Kalen King. It was a big play by King. Interceptions by Aaron Mosby and Christian Welch. That Mosby interception was incredible. You got a defensive lineman dropping into coverage and then, extends the arms to make a beautiful hands catch. And Welch also. Welch tipped the ball and then caught his own tip. Really, really impressive stuff. Pass deflections. 2 pass deflections by Christian Welch, which is ridiculous. He's not even a DB. He has 2 pass deflections, leads the team. Aaron Mosby, also not a corner or safety, with 1, and then Zane Anderson with 1. Safety Zane Anderson. Kick return, Emmanuel Wilson had 1 for 29 yards, which is pretty decent. Punt return, Samori Toure did 1 for 7 yards, 7-yard average. Dimitri Stanley, 2 for 19, 9.5-yard average, 11 was his longest. Daniel Whelan, 3 punts, 136 yards, 1 inside the 20, 55 yards was his longest. And then kickers, obviously, Anders was 1 for 2. His longest was from 54. Greg Joseph, 2 for 2. His longest was from 55. So Joseph having a better day. No, that doesn't change my opinion on the situation. All right, let's take a little break. We'll be right back. U.S. Cellular has noticed the way we use our phones has gotten ironic. We try to put our phones down for dinner, but the menu's on a QR code. That's ironic. We hit like on social posts that we don't actually like, which is ironic. Which is why U.S. Cellular created Us Mode, to help us reconnect with each other and use our phones less ironically. A phone company wanting people to use their phones less is ironic. Let's find us again with Us Mode from U.S. Cellular. Visit uscellular.com/built for us to get started.
It's the most magical time of the year, and I'm not talking about Christmas. I'm talking about the NFL season. So make sure you're ready with NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. Get the most live NFL games all in one place. Right now, you can save $85 when you bundle NFL Sunday Ticket with YouTube TV. Sign up today at youtubetv.com/Spotify. Device and content restrictions apply. Discount applied to first 4 months of YouTube TV, then $72.99 a month. Ends August 29th. Terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. No refunds.
School is back, and Dick's Sporting Goods has what you need to win your year. We've got everything from cleats to Sambas, dunks, and more. Plus, the hottest looks from Nike, Jordan, and Adidas. Find your first day fits in-store or online at Dicks.com.
Dealing with mental health can be hard, but United Healthcare can help make getting care easier. With Mental Health Complete Plus, provided by Teladoc Health. Unlimited virtual sessions for only $59.99 a month. Visit mentalhealthcomplete.com to learn more.
Anyways, before I give my, thoughts, which I pretty much gave them, which is everybody was fantastic, let's do a little bit of Matt LaFleur. We don't usually do a lot of post-game stuff. I always think we can get to it the next day, and then stuff comes up and we don't. So why don't we do that right away? I always enjoy this sort of the one-on-one interview that Matt LaFleur does with Larry McCarron. It's usually a very lighthearted kind of a deal, and Larry McCarron is a pretty liked guy. So we'll listen to a little bit of that. So this one is nice and short. It's just a few minutes, so I'm just going to let this one play out.
Hats off to you guys. What a terrific way to end the preseason.
Yeah, I thought it was outstanding. I thought just everything that you can control, the effort, the physicality, guys running to the ball, straining, really in all three phases really showed today. Our play style was on point.
Was there a particular part of it that you really, really like?
There wasn't much not to like. I know we gave up the one big play defensively, and then we missed some opportunities offensively. Certainly loved to make all our kicks today. We missed the one, but I thought all in all the performances were what we need and what we expect moving forward.
4 takeaways by your defensive unit, led by Aaron Mosby. Forced fumble that leads to a touchdown and an interception. Those takeaways, you win and lose games with those things.
Oh, absolutely. I thought he played outstanding. I mean, the physicality showed up on the scoop and score by Anthony Johnson, and then I thought Christian Welch had a great takeaway. Kalen King had a nice hit that we didn't want to score on, apparently. Christian Young kind of fell over himself, but all in all, it was an outstanding defensive performance.
Could you talk about your running game? 193 yards worth, and it's all done by the young fellas.
Yeah, I thought our backs ran really, really hard. I thought that was the most physicality we had seen from these guys, and that was one of the challenges going into this thing, with knowing that Baltimore is a physical group, and it was great to see those guys finishing runs and then playing with low pad level.
I would assume that missed 32-yarder by Anders Carlson does not make the job of selecting a kicker any easier.
I would assume, right. Yeah, it definitely is a challenge, because those are ones that you got to make. And, it's disappointing because he made a 50-some yarder earlier. So, it is what it is. And, but luckily for us, we got a great sample size all throughout camp. Whether it's in practices or in the preseason games, we had 2 joint practices, so we got a good sample size.
If you'll excuse me, I got to give a shout out to the offensive line. 193 yards rushing, no sacks.
Yeah, I thought our line really did an outstanding performance and played the way we need them to play.
Did you learn anything about the guys competing to be your backup quarterback, Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt?
Well, I thought there was good moments for both those guys. Unfortunately, I thought there was a couple missed opportunities, and we'll take a look at the tape and dive into it a little bit deeper.
Okay, Matt, you got to be cut down to 53 on Tuesday. What goes on now? I think just making sure that we dot all our I's and cross all our T's, and there's going to be great communication between myself, our staff, and Goody and the other scouts. You're looking forward to getting started on the Eagles?
Absolutely. We've kind of been doing that in advance, quite frankly.
So several things there he highlighted that, again, I can't reiterate, I guess, enough. The finishing of the runs, I think, I was very evident if you watched the game. a lot of guys, like I said, McCrary and Wilson, I don't necessarily think about as sort of power backs. But the way that they all finish runs, man, I feel like I'm just going to be repeating myself a lot, but it's just really nice because we hear the same stuff over and over again. And some of it, like, we get it right away. Some things, they talk about the way that they teach quarterbacks, and it's like, oh, yeah, for sure. Like, they know what they're doing. Like, the quarterbacks are great. They teach it, and you see it. Wide receivers, they teach certain things, even blocking. Like, the way that these guys go out and block, they preach it, and then they get it in return. Some of the stuff, though, you don't see it. And I think when it comes to running the ball in all phases, whether that's blocking or the running backs or whatever, especially finishing runs, and that's an offensive line thing as much as it's a running back thing. But then, again, to jump back to the defense, we hear all the same. I mean, all defensive coordinators want essentially the same thing. They all talk about, eyes on the ball and running to the ball and finishing plays and all that stuff. How often do we actually see it, though? It was so good to just see it was the opposite of last week. Last week, it's like, these guys don't even want to play football. I don't know what's going on. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand anything. It was the first time we saw, like that defense that we've been seeing, it wasn't out there anymore. And now we saw the best version of that, best version of the running backs, best version of the offensive line maybe that we've seen, especially when it comes to run blocking. Not only did the running backs finish hard, but there were several wide open holes, which is very rare, especially among Packers offensive lines. So, that was great to see. Again, the one negative being Anders Carlson just choosing to make it not a perfect day. I've said 1,000 times now, I think it's his job. But I've also said the Packers always do stuff that shock me, and that would be in that category. You heard what Matt LaFleur said about, those are the ones you have to make. And as much as it's the Packers' way to kind of do a certain thing, what the Packers also know how to do is to get to a point where they say, we tried everything we could and there's nothing left. Now, I don't think they're there with Anders Carlson. I don't think so. But I don't know. You never know. That was the same thing. Well, I guess he got put on IR, but there are times when guys get cut, and it's like, that's shocking because they'll hang on to certain guys for 2, 3, 4 years before they end up cutting them and moving on. This guy didn't even make it through the first year or whatever the case may be. You don't know, right? There's certain things that they got to work on, and I'm sure if you can look at it and say, look, he's really talented, and we just got to work on X, Y, and Z, and we think if we fix this work and this and that, then everything's all ready to go. It's not impossible that they've corrected everything they can correct with Anders, and it's just not there. I would be surprised, especially since Greg Joseph has not even been a better kicker. He has missed more kicks. He has a lower percentage, and he has no upside. So he's not a safe pick. He's not, there's nothing there. So even if you don't really care for Anders or you do think you're done, I still don't know that it's not a better option than Greg Joseph. But again, we will see how that all pans out. At the end of the day, I'm really not sweating it. I'm not sticking up for Anders because I'm a huge, I think he's going to be a leader or anything. I kind of don't. I'm just trying to sort of bring some perspective to things. But I think either way it goes, we're going to come into the season nervous. And anybody doing backflips, if it is Greg Joseph, really doesn't understand the situation. I think you're just upset. You're just happy that a guy that you don't like got fired, and you're not really realizing, the situation in front of us is going to be dire. And by dire, I mean make most of the kicks, but they're not somebody that they're going to be lined up with that game-winning 47-yarder, and you're going to feel not like you ever do. I mean, Mason missed those and everything, but I don't know, man. It is what it is. But it's just one position. We got a lot of positions. A lot of question marks that you hope are really solid. I mean, you look at corner, significantly more important than kicker is. From a game-to-game basis and everything, we don't know exactly what version of Jair we're getting. We have no idea what we're getting from Stokes. We don't know anything about this defense. So we got enough to worry about. It is what it is. I'm really not going to sweat it all that much. But, as he said, that's not what you want to do. I mean, he was basically perfect the last several days. If he could have just made that chip shot field goal, it would have been beyond locked up for him. And for him to essentially miss a kick that is almost exactly an extra point range, it's just the one thing you couldn't do. He was 100% for all kicks, including extra points, under 40 yards. And within seconds of this thing being put away, he misses a 32-yarder. But whatever. I still think it's going to be honors. But yeah, everything else, more or less perfect. Again, the quarterbacks really weren't great. I really liked Pratt, but when he came out the second time, it didn't feel the same as when it did when he came out earlier. But overall, very, very, very happy. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to play it, but why don't I go through some of the question and answer stuff here that Matt LaFleur went on. It's the longer one, not the one-on-one, but just some of the question and answer stuff. First of all, he comes out, gives praise to the Baltimore Ravens and everything else, a lot of respect for Harbaugh and his crew, pleased with the performance, et cetera, et cetera. First question, obviously, is about the kicker. He's not going to answer that. I don't know the point of asking a question like this. Do you think the week 1 kicker's on the team right now? He says, it's not for me to say. I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot of, here's a question, I don't know type stuff. I don't really know what we're fishing for here. Are you confident in your backup quarterbacks? We'll see. He said he made the decision and told the starters yesterday, so the day before the game, that they wouldn't be playing. He said it was predicated on the fact that they had a really good practice and it would made sense to be cautious, which I think as we sit here, I wouldn't really want it to be any other way. I'm sure if they come out slow, people are going to be screaming, see, he said everybody. All the Monday morning quarterbackers coming out, just same people that would have been screaming if he played them and they got hurt. But you got to be happy with where you're at. I think the team's looking fine. There's no excuse to come out sluggish. You know, the Eagles are also sitting people, so don't really want to hear it. The team is going to be off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. They're going to come back Wednesday, which makes sense. They're going to take their time to work on the roster, get that all squared away, and then once they have the official 53, people that made the team will come back and get back to work. He said he doesn't know if A.J. Dillon or Marshawn Lloyd will be back for week 1. Obviously, you don't really want to comment on that because we're not even sure what's going to happen as far as the 53 with those guys, whether there's going to be any IR, possible cuts, I don't know. He asked about Christian Welch. Coach said he's smart, tough, physical player. His interception was outstanding, and he made a great break on the ball. Asking about how impressive Aaron Mosby was, he says extremely impressive. He had 2 takeaways, a forced fumble, and an interception as a dropper in coverage. Mosby really was impressive today. Interesting note, asked who called the offense today. He said Jason Vrabel, actually the passing game coordinator, called the first half, and then John Dunn, I think he said, the tight ends coach, called the second half. So kind of interesting that those were the guys. I guess not massively surprising with Vrabel. Dude's been around a lot. He got promoted to passing game coordinator, but maybe kind of goes to show where John Dunn ranks on these things. You know, I mean, it wasn't Tom Clements. It wasn't Luke Butkus. It wasn't, any of the other guys that are, Ben Sermons. It wasn't him. It was Dunn, the tight ends coach. Asking about the right guard situation with Jordan Morgan missing, he said he comes right out and says Sean Ryan has done an outstanding job, so we'll see. We have time with 5 more practices before we play Philly. It's really starting to seem more like Ryan's going to be the guy. I mean, if the season started tomorrow, I think it would have to be. The question just kind of becomes, can Morgan get back, and what can he show in 5, 4, 3, 2 practices, depending on how long it takes for him to get back, to show that he is the guy. So it's becoming statistically much more likely that Sean Ryan will be the starter, at least temporarily. I tell you what, why don't we take a break? We'll come back. We'll finish up some of the Q&A, and then I'll run through the roster. I want to give out about 72 game balls. So we'll be right back.
Hi, and welcome to IKEA. How can I help?
Oh, my schedule is crazy. I just want some me time.
Maybe it's time to embrace the joy of staying in. With comfortable beds, pillow and decor, mood lighting, and so much more, you can turn your bedroom into the place to be.
Oh, sounds like a dream.
We've got you. Visit us in-store or at IKEA-USA.com/sleep to create your dream bedroom today.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Ask your doctor about Air Supra, albuterol budesonide. Eligible patients can pay as little as $0 per inhaler, subject to eligibility rules and maximum savings limits. Restrictions may apply. Visit airsuprasavings.com to learn more.
Make this new school year an opportunity for your kids to learn important life skills with Greenlight. Greenlight is a debit card and money app for families where kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely, while parents keep an eye on kids' money habits. Greenlight also helps families get into their fall routine with a chores feature that lets parents assign chores and pay kids allowance when they check them off. Get your first month free at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
A lot of kind of generic, obvious answer type questions. Is it possible you could rotate players? It's possible. Does Dillard's shoulder injury complicate things? Yes. Duh. He was asked, do you feel like you have a good handle on what kind of team you have? And he says, I think we have a team willing to grind and work, but the true test comes the season when facing adversity. Last year, we learned valuable lessons during tough times, and I think that that's absolutely true. It's easy to win when you're winning, right? That was a big thing I remember saying with the Panthers and Cam Newton, because they were a very emotional team. But the problem with that is when you lose, can you handle it? And they couldn't, especially with Cam at the helm. He's a very emotional guy. He goes into pouty mode. Everyone goes through tough stretches. You're not going to go through and win all your games. And I've been very impressed with the Packers the last 2 years. Under Rodgers in 2023 or 2022, the team obviously got off to a terrible start and was able to bounce back. And then under Jordan in 2023, they got off to a terrible start and were able to bounce back. And I think that's a fantastic thing to have a team that can do that kind of stuff, especially early in the season. You start off and it's like, oh, wow, we suck. There's no evidence we're good at football at all. And to still be able to dig deep and pull out what they did is impressive. Asked about Clifford, he said the obvious. He started off slow, got a little better as the game went on. Was there a communication breakdown on the Ravens' touchdown? He said no, it was just a 3rd and 9 play where 2 hook players jumped the underneath route, leaving a wide open receiver. So not a ton of clarity on where that mistake comes in, but I'm sure somebody will have that information. Some of the film guys are all over that. And then do you have a plan for approaching kickoff returns? He says it's going to vary game by game. If we feel we have an advantage, we might want to return or force a return. We're confident in our returner, but we'll adjust based on the situation, which makes sense. All right, so let's get started here. Let's start with the offense. I thought this was very cool because with the wide receivers, you come into this, we know who the top 4 guys are. There becomes a question with who's after that, and I think Samori Toure has kind of fallen out of the conversation a little bit. He is in the next tier by himself right now, but I think he's outside of the next probably 3. Maybe not, but I would say probably outside of the next 3, which is not great for him. But it's a question of Malik Heath, Bo Melton, and Grant DuBose. And Grant DuBose really has only emerged because he kind of burst onto the scene the past several weeks. He did have a drop when everybody was terrible, but so you come into the game saying, these guys need to separate themselves. They got to be able to do something. And Malik Heath and Bo Melton absolutely rose to the occasion. It was very cool to see. Both of those guys ended up with touchdowns. Both of them were fantastic touchdowns too. Bo Melton spinning back shoulder throw comes up and is able to secure the ball and come down with it. Malik Heath's might even been more impressive, even though it was just a pass kind of right into his chest, more or less. Very tight coverage. His eyes were late, which is the most impressive part about it. Most of the time, you get a guy whose eyes come late like that, you're not going to be able to get your hands up and catch that ball in time. He was able to catch it, muscle it, defender draped all over him, didn't matter. He is a very reliable guy, and that's the kind of thing, man. He's the kind of guy that He might not have the speed or the route running ability to get much separation from down to down, but you got a guy with sure hands that's just going to be there and make the play when there's a play to be made. I'm impressed with Malik Heath. Certainly, again, he has a ceiling. He's never going to be quite as good as these other guys, but I think the Packers like him. I think he's proved that he can continue to be that reliable guy. Bo Melton, I'm a little bit more unsure of. Again, last year, I think the perception is he was just elite last year, and in reality, he kind of just had 2 good games. They were very good games, but out of like the 6 or 7 he played, 2 of them were good. And then he had a really rough offseason, so I was kind of out on it, but he really stepped up. And I also think the blocking for him is really impressive, which is kind of surprising. But he and Malik Heath, I know, really grinded out. No block, no rock, as the saying goes, and I think they both do a good job with that. So I feel confident in those 6, to be honest. I don't think anybody else. I think DeBo's probably his practice squad. I don't really know beyond that who else would be. Probably Turay. I don't really know. Dimitri Stanley, I don't think did much to stand out. They tried him a lot on special teams. Don't know that he did a ton. They may want to give him a shot because he's an undrafted free agent. Jalen Wayne, I don't think is going to make the cut. Julian Hicks, probably not either. Didn't really see him very much. But yeah, it was very cool. A big breakout game for 2 guys that really needed it, especially Bo, because Bo was struggling. He had a lot of drop issues and whatnot. Happy with the offensive line. Again, like I usually say, I don't know who did well and who did what well and all that stuff, but we heard about what Coach had to say about Sean Ryan. I think Jacob Monk was in there quite a bit, doing a good job. The big guys out there creating holes, I was happy about. Joel Wilson, I think early on had a drop pass or made some kind of a mistake, but he comes back with a big reception, I think on 3rd down with Michael Pratt. Beautiful ball, beautiful catch, turns it up down the sideline, gets a 1st down. No idea how that's going to shake out with tight end, but I know Ben Sims stepped up quite a bit. I know Joel Wilson stepped up a ton in the preseason, those 2 guys in particular. So we'll have to see how that materializes. Again, quarterback, not massively impressed. I'm still a huge Pratt fan. I thought he looked amazing down this. If it wasn't especially for that one horrific pick where it looked like he had a guy open and just underthrew it or threw it with such low trajectory or something that it hit a defender right in the chest. But, whatever, rookie stuff. Running backs, man, the running backs break my heart every year because every year the running backs run hard. 2nd year in a row, Nate McCrary showed out, and I think it's the 2nd year in a row he's about to get cut on the 53s. Could he be a practice squad guy? Possibly, but, again, you could look at a situation where Lloyd does go to IR possibly, or maybe Dillon does. I have no idea. And then Emmanuel Wilson's able to sneak onto the 53. And maybe you can have both of those guys or just Merriweather, I don't know, put on practice squad. Henry Pearson made an appearance, made a couple plays. I don't think it's going to matter all that much. He just came back, and I don't think he's going to end up staying, but I was glad to see him come back. Defensive line, oh my goodness, were they just tearing it up. Brooks and Wooden basically felt like first-team defense up against backups. Like, it wasn't even fair. They just wrecked everything out there nonstop, especially Wooden, but I saw Brooks out there doing some stuff. Brenton Cox is just a force. He cannot be stopped off the edge. I've been asking the question, and I remain convinced ever since. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think he should be ahead of Kingsley and Igbare. Ever since we switched to a 4-3, that was on the front of my mind. Like, I wonder if it hurts Kingsley. I wonder if it helps Brenton Cox. I have hardly heard Kingsley and Igbare's name, and I have not every time I see 57 on the field, I watch him, he gets around the guy. He is an absolute force. He's not up against starters, but I've just been constantly impressed. Jonathan Ford also, he's been there, hasn't really been much of a fixture. Obviously, he just sits on the practice squad or whatever. I do wonder if there's maybe something more to it. He got hobbled a little bit coming off the field. Maybe that's an IR situation. I have no idea. I think they can designate 4 or something, or is it 2? 2 in the preseason? Something like that. So we'll have to see about all of that good stuff. Was very curious, but I just feel like we have so many guys on the defensive line. I don't know how we can squeeze Jonathan Ford in there. Man, oh man. Deslin Alexander, again, down the stretch, really doing some stuff. Zach Morton, I didn't see a ton this time around. Brevin Allen made a couple plays down the stretch. And again, I couldn't even see half the time. I mean, there were so many linebackers and safeties and corners in on every single play. It was ridiculous. Tyron Hopper remains... I mean, I made the comment earlier today, he reminds me of like a starting veteran that's been out there for a long time. I mean, he's just no nonsense. He just looks pissed all the time. All the time. Like when something goes wrong for the defense, he's shaking his head. He's mad at somebody made a mistake. He's hurrying back to the line. When somebody touches his football, he takes that personal and he comes and attacks them. I just incredibly impressed with Tyron Hopper. Christian Welch had a phenomenal game. Aaron Mosby had a phenomenal game. Raylan Goforth, I think, continues to not have very phenomenal games, so I feel confident in his fate. Jermon Green made several solid plays. Kitano Oladapo. It's funny because the whole game we're like, hey, where's Oladapo? When is he coming out? When's Home Depot coming out? And first time we saw him was on the interception. He goes and lays out 2 people for a block and then comes in on another play and levels a guy a little bit later. So you don't really see him, but when you do, he's always out there making plays. Zane Anderson with a beautiful pass breakup, about the only time I saw him all day. Anthony Johnson Jr., oh my good Lord, these safeties are out of control. Even Benny Sapp, all the safeties. Oladapo, Zane Anderson, Benny Sapp, and Anthony Johnson Jr. were out of control. I don't know if Williams played. I feel like in the very, very beginning, there was a guy that came downhill and leveled somebody. I thought it was Williams, but it probably wasn't because I didn't see him the rest of the day. But man, oh man, Kalen King, I thought he was phenomenal. He had 2 plays in particular. One where he forced a fumble, which obviously is huge. There was another play, though, where he came in and hit a guy so hard. Man, the offensive player went flying. His helmet came popping off. I mean, he is a violent human being. I am beyond a huge fan of Kalen King. I really am. And we'll see what happens when the cutdowns come. I think we know Stokes and Jair and Keyshawn and Carrington Valentine, and we know that they like Valentine. I don't know if Kalen can steal that spot or not. But boy, oh boy, I'm just getting excited about this team. I really like them. Daniel Whelan continues to do a really good job. I think we need to just get our cover guys doing a little bit better job. They did this time, by the way. In that last preseason game, it's like all the return guy has to do is stand there and look up at the sky like he's going to catch it, and everybody just stands there. It's like, no, you have to run behind them and stop the football. They did that this time. Thought he did a really good job kicking. Kickers, as I said, Greg Joseph had a good day, but he's been struggling lately. Anders Carlson has not been struggling, has been nailing everything, and then did the one thing, the absolute one thing you cannot do. I mean, I think an actual extra point would have been worse, even though it was longer, but just the psychology of it would have made it worse. But whatever. Again, the kicker situation is what it is. We're not fixing it. We're not going to have a kicker this year that is great. So get that out of your head. What we hopefully have is an MVP quarterback with an elite wide receiver group and a really scary defense. And I think I'm okay with that. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Great end to the preseason. A couple weeks, we got some regular season football, so we'll have some fun. You guys have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.